Taiwan's president is beginning a week-long sweep through the Pacific to visit its three remaining diplomatic allies in the region. But China has responded furiously to the tour and is particularly angry that President Lai is stopping off in the US state of Hawaii. There are fears in Taiwan that Beijing might launch a fresh round of military exercises around the island in retaliation. A Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetz joins us now from Parliament House in Canberra. Stephen, where is President Lai visiting and why is he making this trip?
Well, Gemma, he's making this trip because Taiwan is constantly facing a battle with Beijing to try and preserve its diplomatic allies. Now, over the last decade or so, Beijing's enjoyed an enormous amount of success. It's managed to strip away 10 diplomatic partners from Taiwan. They're the countries that recognise Taipei instead of Beijing. And the Pacific hasn't been immune from this. We've seen 3 countries over the last 5 years also defect from Beijing from Taipei to Beijing. So that is a trend that Taiwan desperately wants to stop. It doesn't want to be totally diplomatically isolated. It wants its president to be able to travel, and that means that it has to put a bit of work into sandbagging those remaining allies, and that's exactly what President Lai is doing on this trip. So he's going to visit 3 countries, the Republic of Marshall Islands, as well as Tuvalu and Palau. They're the 3 allies that remain for Taiwan in the Pacific. And what he's going to do is to try and expand those relationships, talk about what additional assistance Taiwan could offer. Most importantly, though, build up those personal relationships with the small number of political elites in all those countries to try and provide a bit of a backstop and ensure that no more Pacific Island countries join those who have already left, heading for the exit.
So tell us about these stops in US territories and why has it drawn such a furious reaction from Beijing?
Well, Beijing doesn't like the president stopping off in Pacific Island countries which recognise Taiwan, and it's made the usual noises this time around, urging those countries to recognise that they're, quote, on the wrong side of history and trying to convince them to recognise Beijing instead. But it's even angrier about the president stopping off in the US because the US, unlike these Pacific Island countries, recognises Beijing and doesn't have a formal diplomatic relationship with Taiwan. So China sees the fact that the US is allowing President Lai to stop off not just in Guam, a US Pacific territory, but also in the state of Hawaii, which is several thousand kilometres away from any of these other countries, as a real abrogation of its commitments under the One China policy that it's agreed to. And it believes that the US is edging away from those commitments. Now, this is something that China does not want to see. It wants to stop the US opening up political space for Taiwan. It's worth remembering the US is by far Taiwan's most important security guarantor, even though they don't have formal relationships. It sells a huge amount of military equipment to Taiwan, which is critical for its national security. And it's also perhaps the most forceful country when it comes to pushing to give Taiwan a bit more international space. So China is responding furiously to this. It says that the US has to respond or has to treat the Taiwan issue with great care, and it's warning that if the US doesn't do that, then it could undermine the broader bilateral relationship between the 2 great powers.
And are we likely to see Beijing launch military exercises in response to this?
Look, it's really difficult to say, Gemma. It's certainly possible. Some officials in Taiwan have speculated that this is likely. Some analysts also say, given we've seen this steady escalation in tensions across the state with Beijing repeatedly launching mass-scale military exercises over recent years, it's entirely possible that it does that. If that does happen, obviously that would be deeply destabilising. It would cause enormous amounts of concern across the region as well as inside Taiwan itself. But we'll have to wait and see. It is possible that Beijing, given its grappling with the implications of a Donald Trump 2.0 presidency, might be a little bit more hesitant and might be a little bit more circumspect, but we'll simply have to wait and see. It's certainly a real possibility. It's something that Australia, however, does not want to see.